So, good day. We're learning, today is Tu B'Shvat. We're learning a new Maamar, the Maamar that Rebbe said in 1952 on Parshas Mishpatim, which was Shabbos Mavorachim Chodesh Adar. And just briefly, a little background to understand the Maamar, when it was said, in a sense, why it was said. These years, 1951, 52, 53, the way I see these years, they were the founding years and developing years of the Rebbe's Rebbehood, if you could call that. Here's a young person who, as we learned in Basel Legani 1951 Maamar, it was placed on him. He says there, this wasn't my will, this is not our will, but this is the situation, which is, by the way, a great lesson just in itself. Isser's now telling me about his, issues on the flight. He doesn't have the sefer. It's been placed on you. That's the way it is. Min Hashamayim, the Eibishter wanted you to go through that experience for whatever reason. The Rebbe says the same thing. In other words, the Rebbe becoming the Lubavitcher Rebbe, I'm not interested in this. I just want to learn to daven and help people and serve Hashem in my own private way. What do I need this responsibility? But obviously, this has been Hashemayim, it happened. Okay. So here he is. There's still older Hasidim. There's the new budding young Bachurim students. It's America. It's post-Holocaust. It's post the founding of the state of Eretz Yisrael. And, it's a very trying time, yet a very exhilarating, opportunistic time. And in these Maimarim that the Rebbe said, I would say these first 3 years, which I've gone through many of them, and in fact I wrote a book called Demystifying the Maamar, taking a user-friendly approach to the Maimarim, not a verbatim approach. I found that there's many elemental points for life, and for life as a chassid, and for life as a chassid as Lubavitcher chassid. So regardless, if you're a chassid, you're not a chassid, you're Lubavitcher, you're not Lubavitcher, it makes no difference. There's shittas here that he puts in that are very, very important. Particularly if one is a Chabadnik, a Lubavitcher, there's a lot here you could take from. So with that in mind, in 1952, on this Shabbos at 12:35 or so in the afternoon, the Rebbe surprises everyone, and he comes in from his study. If you've been to 770, you know what the Rebbe's study is. He comes in through the back door to the base medrash that's kind of adjacent to his office upstairs. In other words, he didn't go the normal way. When the Rebbe would come out to Mincha, he would leave his office and walk straight across the corridor to the room, to the opening, to the base medrash, to the shul. He didn't do that this time. He went into the corridor, he went this way, and then he went around from the back, which was the place where he would sit at. Why he did it that way, I don't know. No one knows, but that's what he did. Anyway. And everyone, how many people were there? 50 people. It's hard to imagine. There were very few people there, but whoever was there saw that he's interested in saying something. So they right away, came together, and he started to say a 55-minute Maamar. This is the Maamar. It was Parshas Mishpatim. This is a pasuk in Parshas Mishpatim. Lo Tiye Mishakela. It's now 74 years or so from that time. It's become a classic in the world of Chabad. This Maamar. When I was a yeshiva student, a bacher, my mashpia encouraged us in Morristown, New Jersey, in the yeshiva to learn it. I subsequently memorized it and reviewed it many times in public in different situations. And the nekuda of the Maamar, the essence of this Maamar, is the concept of avoda, service. What does it mean to be an Oved Hashem? And that being an Oved Hashem is completely not thinking about what's best for you, but rather what's best for Hashem. And this, although one could say, well, what's the Chiddush? Look in any Musar Sefer or any Chassidus Sefer, that's, basic 101 Musar and Chassidus. But the Rebbe, here makes it so personal, because if you will think and realize, as we learned the Maamar, that he's kind of talking about himself. That's what made this to us Hasidim very special, is that this isn't just a Maamar that he's talking to others. If you understand what I just said before, the background where he's coming from, that he wasn't interested in being a Lubavitcher Rebbe over Hasidim. Just leave me alone and bug off. And yet, that's what happened. So he continues to, in a sense, bemoan the fact that this is placed on us, this responsibility, and so what do we do about it? So it's coming, we say the pasuk, min ha-meitzar karosi ka, from out of distress I call you. In a way, it's min ha-meitzar. Min ha-meitzar means I'm not interested in this. Leave me alone. This is a bother. Like min ha-meitzar karosi ka, specifically from this distress and this uncomfortable place that I'm not interested in being. From there, we call upon Hashem, and we have the ultimate best for Hashem. That's where it's coming from, this Maamar. So this no longer becomes Velvel, a Maamar of a Rebbe that said, like the Rashab or the Marash or the Alter Rebbe said a Maamar. Of course, it's very personal. The Rebbe speaking about himself. So that's why in Chabad, the teachers, the Mashpiyim, they encouraged us to learn and to memorize and to live with this Maamar, because we too, in our own lives, we're not Rebbes, but we too, we have situations where we're not interested in that situation. Just, right? Okay? But yet you're put into a situation. How do you deal with it? In other words, do you have the right perspective? This Maamar will teach us what the right perspective is, and then guess what? We have to work. Like I told you the Maisa with the Rebbe's brother. My brother will teach you already how to work, how to be meshubad, right? That story that I shared with you, that famous the saying of the Rebbe's brother to the two Gerari Hasidim in 1950 in Tel Aviv, Nachlat Binyamin, where people are, showing off their art today. It's a midrachov, and that shul over there, the Rebbe's brother made that comment, and this Maamar emulates that concept, and it actually gives direction. So let's begin now. So that's the background of the Maamar. Lo Tiye Mishakela, it says in the pasuk that Hashem says there will not be a woman who loses her young child, that she's pregnant and, loses it. Or va'akara, there won't be a woman who's barren. Ba'aretzecha, in your land. Next part of the pasuk says, as misper yomecha amali, I, Hashem, will fulfill the number of your days. So we have two things in the pasuk, Menashe, right? A woman won't lose her child, her pregnant, her baby. Number two, she won't be barren. And then it jumps to another concept, I will fulfill your days. Now, seemingly, these two parts of the pasuk, like Rashi says, Ma inyer Shmitas Eitzel Har Sinai. What is the relevance between Shemitah and Har Sinai? What's the relevance between a woman not losing her child or being barren, and I will fulfill your days? It's two separate ideas. Obviously, it's not, and that's what the Maamar is also going to explain. Let's continue. This pasuk hu behemshich l'mashenemar lefnei, it's a continuation of what's said earlier in the Torah. Quote, "V'avadetem es Hashem Elokechem, you shall serve God your God. Uveirachas lachmecha, and when you do that, God will bless your bread, v'esmeimecha, and your water. V'asiroisi machla min b'kirbecha, and God says, I myself, v'asiroisi, I will remove machla, illness, mikirbecha, from amongst you. Mamshich shal yidei zeh lo tiye gam ke mishakela." So then the verse in the Torah continues by saying, not only will you have a blessing in your bread and your water, and I'll remove illness, but guess what? A woman won't lose her baby, and a woman won't be barren. Many rewards for Va'avadat Hashem Elokecha. 5 rewards: bread, water, removing of illness, not losing a baby, and not being barren. All coming because of Va'avadatem. If you will serve Hashem, Va'avadatem, these are all the positive results. Okay. I said 5, but the Rebbe summarizes them into 3. The verse here promises Al Gimel Ha'inyanim 3 things, regarding 3 things. 1, Bana, children. You won't lose your children or you won't be barren. Chaya, you'll live a fine life. In other words, you won't be ill. Hashem says, I'll take away the illness. That means you'll have way, which you could have life, good life, which you call chaya. And number 3, mezayna. You'll have sustenance, parnosa. Because he says, I'll bless your water, your bread, and your water, which is food and bread, which is symbolic of parnosa. Okay. The Rebbe says, it's not only you'll have a little bread, you'll have a little water. You'll have, look at the lashon, look at the word. You'll have ribui uvafloga. You'll have a lot. So it's a tremendous bracha. Okay? And the Rebbe explains how we see this in the verse. This I said it earlier. These 2 things, I'll bless your bread and your water, refers to sustenance. Madgish because of uveirach v'goymer. The Rebbe says that the Hashem in the Torah, this pasuk emphasizes the word ublessed, uveirach. Hainu, shelezu uvad sheyiyah hamazoyne k'fi hamitzarech. Not only will you have the amount of bread that you need, Eloiza is more so shetia bezeh teisefes b'brocha. Those of us that remember listening or listen now to Fabrengens, the Rebbe used always a term, mezoyne revicha, which means it's Aramaic for an abundance of sustenance. Mezoynes. Revicha is from the word revach, lots. Why B'zayne Revicha? So he makes the same point here. So I'm going to be pointing out to you through the Maamar things that the Rebbe spent 42 years explaining. You see in these early Maamarim, and that's why they're the fundamental Maamarim of the Rebbe. Because this concept of B'zayne Revicha, he spoke about so many times, and there were times he explained it more at length. And here, in this Maamar, which is, again, 1952, it's his new career as a Rebbe, he throws it in. And what does he throw in? He says that there won't only, Hashem is saying, in other words, the question is, Hillel, why is the Lashon Uveirach? He'll give you. Hashem will give you your food and your bread and your water. It doesn't say he'll give you. It says he'll bless you. Uveirach. Says the Rebbe, the reason why it says uveirach, because this implies that there'll be not just ordinary mezaynos, sustenance, but mezayna revicha. You'll have a tremendous amount, an abundance amount. And that's implied in the word ubeirach, ubracha, which is an important thing for us to know. When we say, give me a bracha, I want to have a bracha, I want a bench. The implication of a bracha is not just a little, but so much in abundance beyond the norm. That's the implication of the word ubeirach. Let's continue. And then we come to the next thing, chaya, life. I will take away the illness from amongst you. And more so, as mispayamecha amali. So here you see what he does? He connects the part of the verse that I told you, what's the connection to before, he answers the question now. In the previous verse it says, I, God, will remove your... Are you guys hear me? It's going in and out. You hear me or not?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
The thrills of traveling and relying on other people's internet in South Florida. Verstehst? With all the gedulas of South Florida, it can't have normal internet. It's the best I can do. So, the pasuk says, Es mispa yomecha amali, I will fulfill the amount of your days. Says the Rebbe, this is the additional blessing to the previous words, previous verse where it says, I, God, will remove your illness. We have our doctor here. A doctor, a person comes who's not well, he gives a medicine, he gives a trufa. He removes the illness. Hashem gave him the power to give right? We have two doctors. Sorry, Velvel. So the Rebbe says the pasuk isn't just telling you, I'll remove the illness and you'll come back to me next week with another problem. Es mispar yomecha amali, I will fulfill the days, meaning that the illness will never come back, kind of. Because if it comes back again, you're lacking in the days. We all know when we wake up with a cold or we're not well, it's a day that we don't do it, it's lacking, it's missing. As mispa yamecha amale, I will fulfill the days so that the removal of the illness will be permanent. That's the concept. So that's analogous to the ubeirach eslach mecho vesmei mecho, that there'll be not just a bracha, but an abundance of a bracha. That's what he's pointing out here, that the psukim, the verses, are emphasizing that not only will you be rewarded with the minimal, you'll be rewarded with the ultimate. That's the trajectory here in this part of the Maamar. And look what he says in the next line, Shehu inyan arichas yamim. You will live a long life. So I said that it won't come back again, but the Rebbe is not using that line. The Rebbe is using the line, you'll have arichas yamim, long life. But I would argue that a long life, being God forbid sick, I don't think that's a great blessing. So if it says over here, as mispa yamecha amale, I would tend to believe not only is a long life, but it's a long, healthy life. Again, doesn't say it, so I take the responsibility for that comment. Let's continue. So too regarding the third matter, having children. The verse says, there won't be a woman that'll lose her child or be barren. This is the blessing that you'll have of the baby, which is the opposite of being barren. And that the child will be sustained and remain and live. Hashlila de Mishakela, which is the opposite of Mishakela. Uvaifin, and in what manner will you have this? Wonderful words. That the child and children you'll have will remain to be elder, to an old age. It's something we don't, it's a hard thing to think about, but Rahman al-Islam, someone, God forbid, loses a child when they're alive, it's very, very painful. Most painful things. We should never know about it. And that's the bracha here. That you will outlive your child. You will pass away before your child, which is a big bracha. You shouldn't see, God forbid, a child of yours passing before yourself. That's what he says. It's something that we don't like thinking about, but we need a bracha for that. We take it for granted. We're going to get older. Our kids are younger. What'd you say? Yes.
The pshat of the word maskela, sakela, is a woman who lost her children.
Shakela, we're going to learn soon. Kasha shakolti. Shakolti means missing. Do me a favor. Let me read it inside, and then you'll have your answer. Okay? Let's continue.
Great.
Let's continue. So he says, as we find by Yaakov, Shagam Lezik Nosa, even when he was older, excuse me, he thought he lost one of his children. Yosef, Omar, when he said, Omar, as I have been bereaved of my son, I am bereaved. So technically, Hillel, the meaning of the word shakolti is bereaved. Okay? But the pasuk is referring here to bereavement coming vis-a-vis losing a child, God forbid. Okay. So what does the Torah say here in the pasuk? Lo tiye mishakela v'akara b'artzecha. There won't be a mishakela and akara in your land, right? Yes, the Rebbe says we can explain this language in the Torah in two ways. Either it's a commandment, there won't be, or a promise. No. Tzivui means there shouldn't be. I command you that do not have a mishakela. Or haftacha, Hashem promises there won't be a mishakela. As we find a similar double meaning to the word tiyah in the Torah. Either there will not be a woman, right? Meaning that you are commanded as a Jewish people not to have that, which he's going to explain to soon. He says in Yiddish, "Es tor nit zayin ke mishakela v'akora." There's not allowed to be a mishakela or an akora. Now, what do you mean there's not allowed to be? If a woman loses her child, she loses her child. I don't want to lose my child, and no one wants to lose a child. So obviously, there's something deeper here, and that's what the Maamar is going to go into soon. Akora, who wants to be barren? Every mother wants to have a baby. Every mother that's following Torah. So what do you mean you have to command me? I shouldn't be barren. I don't want to be barren. So obviously, the pasuk's talking about something else. Let's continue. That's as far as the interpretation of lo tiye, the word tiye meaning a commandment. Now, regarding the word tiye being a promise, in Yiddish, as vet nit zayin kenak mishakela v'akora, as there won't be. So listen to the difference. In Yiddish, it's good to know. As tor nit zayin means it is not allowed to be. That's a command. As vet nit zayin, vet means there will not be. That's a promise. So the difference between tornit, not allowed, and vetnit, and won't be. Two different worlds. Commandment versus promise. Okay. Hainu. Now the Rebbe says, what does this imply? That when a person will do their part, not to allow there to be a mashakela v'akora, mafticha HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem promises him, Lo Tiye Mishakela v'akora. Hashem promises him that guess what? If you will do your part, not to allow a situation of mishakela and akora, God says, I'll do my part. So here, this opens up the need for discussion, which is chapter 2 and on. What does that mean? I need to do my part. There shouldn't be Mishakela Vakora. Seemingly doesn't make any sense. It's Hashem that makes a baby be born or not. It's Hashem that makes a person be barren or not. What does that have to do with me? So you see what the Rebbe is doing? He's saying like this, that since the Torah uses the word tiyeh, the word tiyeh implies both commandment and promise. So on the commandment part, he has these, this question. What does it mean? But the fact is, it says lo tiyeh. It says commandment. So obviously the Torah is giving you a commandment. That means you have the ability to do it. Otherwise you won't be commanded. Hashem won't command us to do something that we can't do. Remember that. There's nothing in the Torah, nothing, that we are commanded to do that we can't do. Anyone says, I can't do that, you're a liar. You can do it, you don't want to do it. You don't want to do it, which I can understand. You don't want to do it, but don't tell me you can't do it. So somehow, the Torah is saying, Lo Tiye Mishakela Vakora, you have the ability to stop and prevent a situation of a Mishakela Vakora. Wow. So again, I want to make it clear. Is this the literal pshat in the pasuk? No. Okay, someone who is not trained in this way of thinking, and this isn't only Chassidus, I mean, you can find it, but this is not kind of the conventional taichin approach to the pasuk. But if you open yourself up to this way of thinking, this is included in the pasuk based on the words in the pasuk. Now, I want to make that clear. Now, someone to say, this is Lubavitcher Mises, this is Hasidic Mises, this is sermonizing, this is Midrash. What I understand here from the Rebbe's whole approach that we just elaborated on, he's telling us that the verse, Lo Tiye, implies this interpretation. Otherwise, the Torah would have used a different word. Because, and he doesn't bring over here, we would have to look it up, I don't have the Sfarim now, but he says earlier, we find this in several other instances. I see footnote 4, see Likutei Torah, Devarim. Maybe I'm going to look it up after. Okay? So, obviously, the Rebbe is bothered by his own interpretation. You see, and look at our Rebbe, look how he's so open. He's telling you right away that, this is not conventional, traditional interpretation of the verse. But let me tell you, he says, elsewhere you'll see other examples of the word tiyeh implying two meanings, and therefore I'm building on that. I think that's very, very courageous and honest of the Rebbe to kind of open himself up and share with us that on one hand, this is not the traditional pshat. On the other hand, it's an acceptable pshat in Torah. Not Chassidus, not Musar, not Medrash. That's my... And then the second pshat, Lo Tiye, the second pshat that it's a promise, that's a much easier pshat. Why? Because that's the simple text. If you serve God, if you serve Hashem, your God, you'll be blessed. That's a promise. I'm giving you a promise, right? Like it says in Parshas B'chukaisai, if you follow my ways, I'll give you rain, I'll give you what you need, your sustenance. Right? The same thing over here. You serve Hashem properly. I promise you, the wife won't lose a child, it won't be barren, you'll have food, you'll have good health, etc., etc. That is the end of the first. That is the end of the first ois of this Maamar. Any questions, comments? We have a few minutes. What do you guys think about it so far?
No, thank you. I'm very drawn to it. It's got a real engaging intellectually and spiritually.
Yeah.
There was, in the introduction, I was starting to skim it. There was a great story I didn't get to finish. a mashal from the Mashpia, Reb Shlomo Chaim Kesselman. Can you say it over?
I saw that, but let me have you take the time, read it yourself, and think about it.
Okay.
I not that I don't want to answer you, Chas v'Sholom. I read it, and by the way, I need to think about it. You know what I'm saying? Reb Shlomo Chaim is very dear to me because he's my father's mashpia. And in a sense, if not for him, my father would have not been a Lubavitcher. He shared with him as he grew from 13 to 20 or so. He shared with him the beauty of Chassidus, and he made him into a mensch. You know, I'll just end with a short story. My grandfather was from Romania. My father was from Romania. My grandfather was really a Romanian Jew. I mean, he never landed, even in Eretz Yisrael. He never landed. I mean, he would walk with a bag, with a Gemara. No one should see the Gemara at 4 a.m. in Bnei Brak to the local shul, the Belzer shul, to learn, okay? And you know, whatever, he was... he never landed. He was from Romania, from Bukovina. And my father came home from yeshiva, and he said, now I see that your Rebbe, your Lubavitcher Rebbe, is greater than the Baal Shem Tov. My father hears those words from his father and says, Father, greater than the Baal Shem Tov? He says, yeah. The Baal Shem Tov couldn't make you a mensch. The Lubavitcher Rebbe made you a mensch. And what I'm saying to you guys is that the Lubavitcher Rebbe through this Reb Shlomo Chaim. So Reb Shlomo Chaim that you mentioned now is very, very special in my life. But maybe I will mention it. Let me just rethink the story and how to put it into context. Everyone have a great day. I'm sorry for the internet, but yes.
Before everybody goes, I just saw, and I'll get put away, a story that Rabbi Yochanan Twersky, my mother's great uncle, the old Tona Rebbe, he once met with the Frierdiker Rebbe. Have I ever told you this?
No, let me hear.
And he asked the Rebbe for a bracha that he have no nisyonos in life. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe stood up and forcefully said, I can't say it in Yiddish, but I'll give it a try. In nisyonos git nit medorf leiv even nisyonos. It doesn't work without nisyonos. One must love nisyonos. My grandfather then asked, and when he would tell the story, he emphasized in Chabad, one is allowed and even expected to ask, don't we say in Birchas HaShachar, Ba'al tavienu lo lidei nusayon? And the Rebbe instructed my grandfather to read the end of the sentence, Velo lidei bizayon. We request the ability to overcome our challenges so that we are not shamed, but we should accept the tests themselves joyfully. My grandfather used to say that this left an impression that remained with him the rest of his life.
Okay, but what do you understand? What's the answer to the question?
That nisyonos are not optional. That they're part of the fabric of life, and that we should embrace them, and that
right.
We should be open to them.
In other words,
I said it's the purpose of life.
That's right. That's right. And what he's saying, day bizayon, in other words, on the soyin that you goof up on is a bizayon. That's an embarrassment. That's the type of nisoyin you don't want. But in the nisoyin that's a healthy thing, like he said, that's the essence of life. That's the greatest opportunity. Yeah. Okay, we'll see everyone tomorrow. Zygazund, have a great day. Bye-bye.